I always believed that a mother's love was a boundless, inexhaustible thing, a sacred promise, unbroken and pure. For nearly 50 years, since their father, John, passed so suddenly, leaving me with two small children and a future that felt terrifyingly uncertain, I scrimped and saved every spare dollar. Not for myself, never for myself. Every sacrifice, every extra shift at the school, every mended dress instead of a new one was for them. For my Tom, for my Sarah. $1 million. That is what I managed to put away, a lifetime of careful planning, of deferred dreams, a testament to my quiet, unyielding sacrifice, all meant to give them a comfortable future, a buffer against the harshness of the world. But tonight, on my 70th birthday, the silence in this house is louder than any celebration they chose over me, with their father and her, my ex-husband, Richard, and his much younger wife, Brenda. And I confess, as I sit here alone at my dining room table, the greatest pain is not the thought of that carefully hoarded money I had earmarked for them, but the chilling, soul-crushing realization that perhaps, to my own children, the two people I cherish above all else, I have become a burden, an inconvenience, a duty to be endured. The table is set for three. My best china, the one John and I received as a wedding gift, rarely used, a beautiful untouched chocolate cake, their childhood favorite, sits in the center, its cheerful pink frosting proclaiming, "Happy 70th birthday, Martha." The 70 slender candles remain unlit. Two place settings, elegant and hopeful, flank the cake. They remain starkly, painfully empty. Beside my own plate are two small, beautifully wrapped gifts. Gifts I bought for myself, silly as that sounds, meant to be opened with them, to share a small joy. Now they just look like monuments to my foolish hope. If you are listening to this story, thank you so much for being here. Let us know where you are joining us from in the world, and do not forget to subscribe to become part of our growing community. My name is Martha Evans. Today, I am 70 years old. I am a retired school teacher. For 40 years, I stood in front of classrooms, trying to ignite a spark in young minds, sharing my love for literature and history. This small, neat bungalow, the one that feels so cavernously empty tonight, has been my home for most of those years. It is filled with photographs, a lifetime of them. Tom and Sarah in their school uniforms, grinning gap-toothed smiles. Tom proudly holding his high school diploma. Sarah, radiant in her cap and gown at her university graduation. I look at them now, these frozen moments of joy, and wonder where those children went, the ones whose eyes shone with such uncomplicated love for their mother. John's passing, when Tom was just 8 and Sarah was 6, was like having the rug pulled out from under my world. Suddenly, I was a single mother, a young widow, with two small lives entirely dependent on me. There was no time for self-pity. I worked my teaching job, and in the evenings, after the children were asleep, I took in sewing, mending clothes for people in the neighborhood, anything to make ends meet, to ensure they never felt deprived, to start that savings account that I hoped would one day give them a head start in their own lives. My pride in their adult achievements is immense. Tom became an architect, designing sleek, modern buildings. Sarah is a marketing manager for a large firm, always impeccably dressed, always busy. But over the past few years, especially since Richard remarried about 10 years ago, a distance has grown between us. The calls became less frequent, the visits shorter, often feeling rushed, as if I were just another item on their busy to-do lists. My greatest desire, the one I hold close to my heart, is simple: to feel loved, appreciated, and still relevant in their lives. My deepest fear, the one that gnaws at me in the quiet hours of the night, is being forgotten, of becoming truly, utterly alone. Richard and I divorced amicably enough many years after John's death. The spark had long gone. He met Brenda, a woman at least 20 years his junior, all bright blonde hair and a dazzling, if somewhat insincere, smile. I have always maintained a polite, if cool, relationship with Richard for the sake of Tom and Sarah. Brenda is different. I remember a family dinner a year or so ago, I think it was for Richard's birthday. Brenda made a comment, directed at me but loud enough for everyone to hear, about my rather old-fashioned views on child-rearing. She said it with a sweet, patronizing smile, but her eyes had a sharp, competitive glint. Tom and Sarah had just laughed uncomfortably, exchanging awkward glances, but neither of them defended me or my old-fashioned ways that had somehow managed to raise them successfully. I felt a chill then, a premonition of being slowly, subtly pushed to the periphery of my own family. The true beginning of this current heartache started several weeks before my 70th birthday. It's a significant milestone, 70. I had been looking forward to it, in a quiet way. I called Tom first, then Sarah, my voice probably betraying a little too much hopeful excitement. I was thinking, I began, for my big 70th, perhaps just a quiet dinner here at the house. Nothing fancy, just the three of us. Your favorite pot roast, maybe that chocolate cake you both used to love. It would mean the world to me. Tom sounded vaguely agreeable, if a little distracted. Sure, Mom. That sounds nice. Let me check my calendar. Things are pretty hectic at work right now, but yeah, we should do something. Sarah was similarly non-committal, though her voice had a touch more warmth. Oh, 70! Wow, Mom, that is a big one. Yes, we should definitely celebrate. Let me talk to Tom and see what his schedule looks like. We will work something out. Hopeful, I started making quiet preparations. I planned the menu, picturing their faces as they tasted the dishes they had loved as children. I bought a new tablecloth, a cheerful floral pattern. I even practiced making the chocolate cake, just to ensure I still had the knack. Then just 3 days ago, 3 days before my meticulously planned birthday dinner, Tom called. His voice was strained, awkward, almost apologetic, but not quite. Mom, something's come up. Something unexpected. I felt a cold knot begin to form in my stomach. Dad and Brenda, well, they have planned this surprise trip for us all. To Hawaii. It's kind of a joint celebration, they are calling it. Brenda's birthday is around the same time, you see, and Dad wanted to do something really special for her and for us to all be together as a family. Brenda's birthday, I knew perfectly well, was a full 2 weeks after mine. This was no coincidence. This was a deliberate, calculated move designed to create a conflict, to force a choice. Sarah got on the extension then, her voice falsely bright, overly cheerful. Mom, we are so sorry. It was such short notice from Dad, a complete surprise. We really could not say no to him. You know how he gets when he has his heart set on something. And it is all paid for, first-class tickets, a beautiful resort. It is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. A cold wave of disappointment, so intense it almost buckled my knees, washed over me. Hawaii. While I had been planning a simple pot roast and a homemade cake, my voice was quiet, carefully devoid of the accusation I felt. Hawaii? Oh, I see. I tried to be understanding, to mask the deep, sharp sting of rejection. Well, I managed. That sounds lovely. Perhaps we can celebrate my birthday when you get back. Their answers were vague, full of, we will see, and, of course, Mom, we will figure something out, definitely. But I knew, deep down in the place where a mother's intuition resides, they would not. My 70th birthday, a milestone I had looked forward to sharing with them, had been casually, effortlessly erased from their agenda. And so this morning, the morning of my actual 70th birthday, I woke up with a heavy heart. Despite everything, despite the blatant dismissal, a tiny, stubborn ember of hope had remained stubbornly alive within me. Perhaps they would call, their voices filled with genuine remorse, truly heartbroken that they were missing my special day. Perhaps a lavish bouquet of flowers would arrive, a token of their love, a concession to their guilt. I even baked a small version of their favorite chocolate cake, just in case. Just in case they had a change of heart, or their flight was delayed, or a miracle occurred. The house remained silent, too silent. The phone did not ring. The doorbell did not chime. Around mid-morning, just as I was beginning to accept the stark reality of a solitary birthday, the phone finally rang. My heart leaped with a foolish, desperate hope. It was Sarah. "Happy birthday, Mom!" Her voice was breezy, distant, almost tinny. In the background, I could clearly hear the unmistakable sounds of chatter, laughter, and what sounded distinctly like tropical birds. "So sorry we are not there to celebrate with you. Hawaii is absolutely amazing. You would not believe the beaches, Mom. The water is so blue." I managed a weak, "That is lovely, dear. I am glad you are having a good time." My voice sounded foreign to my own ears, thin and reedy. Then, fatally, Sarah must have turned away from the phone slightly, presumably to speak to Brenda or her father, who were clearly nearby. Her voice became muffled for a second, as if she thought she was covering the receiver, but my hearing, honed by years of listening for the slightest cough from a sick child in the night, is still remarkably sharp. I heard her say, her words clear enough to be unmistakable, sharp as shards of glass, "Gotta go. Just doing the duty call, you know?" A slight pause, then, "Honestly, Brenda, this vacation is so much more fun than sitting through one of Mom's boring dinners. She just goes on and on, you know, such a drag." I heard Brenda's light, tinkling laughter in the background, a sound that felt like a drill boring into my skull. Then Sarah came back on the line, her voice restored to its falsely bright cheerfulness. "Okay, Mom, gotta run. The luau is starting soon. Have a great day. Love you. Bye." And the line clicked dead, severing the last fragile thread of my hope. I stood frozen in my kitchen, the receiver still pressed hard against my ear, the dial tone buzzing like a swarm of angry bees. "A drag. Duty call. Boring dinners." The words echoed in the crushing, absolute silence of my home, each one a fresh, vicious stab to my heart. This was not just forgetfulness or poor planning on their part. This was active dismissal. This was contempt. The carefully constructed dam of my composure, the one I had maintained for days, for weeks, finally broke. The pain was immense, a physical blow that stole my breath, that made my chest ache with an almost unbearable pressure. But as the initial shockwaves of pain began to subside, something else, something cold and hard and entirely unexpected, began to crystallize within the shattered remnants of my heart. A cold, hard clarity. They had made their choice so clearly, so definitively. Now it was my turn to make mine. The silence after that call was a universe of its own, cold, empty, and echoing with the casual cruelty of my own daughter's words. 70 years of life, a lifetime of love poured into my children like water into a sieve, all dismissed as a drag, a burden to be shirked in favor of tropical breezes and a stepmother's shallow amusement. They were basking in the Hawaiian sun, no doubt already forgetting their perfunctory duty call, while I was left in the shadows with an untouched cake and a heart that felt, as if it had been shattered into a million pieces. But as the initial shockwaves of pain began to subside, something else, something unexpected, began to crystallize within me. A cold, hard clarity. They had made their choice, so clearly, so definitively. Now it was my turn to make mine. What would you do if the children you sacrificed everything for treated your deepest feelings, your very existence, like dust on their shoes to be casually brushed aside? I spent the remainder of my 70th birthday in a state of profound shock and a sorrow so deep it felt bottomless. I didn't cry, not at first. The pain was too raw, too acute for tears. Instead, a quiet, resolute anger began to build within me, a protective shell forming around my wounded heart. I walked through my silent house, room by room, looking at the photographs of Tom and Sarah as children, their innocent smiles, their trusting eyes, their chubby arms wrapped around my neck in countless candid snapshots. I opened the old wooden box where I kept their handmade Mother's Day cards, the ones with misspelled words and lopsided hearts, saved for decades. The contrast between those cherished memories of pure, uncomplicated love and the casual, callous cruelty of Sarah's overheard words, such a drag, was almost unbearable. That evening, I meticulously wrapped the uneaten chocolate cake in plastic wrap and aluminum foil and placed it in the freezer. It was a strange, symbolic act, I suppose, preserving the evidence of their betrayal, or perhaps preserving the last vestiges of a love I now realized was largely unreciprocated. I sat in my favorite armchair, the one John used to sit in, and I let myself reflect, truly reflect, on my life of sacrifice. The university courses I had wanted to take but never did, because the money was needed for their braces, their school trips. The small promotions at school I had passed up because the extra hours would have meant less time with them. The second job I took as a seamstress, my fingers often sore and pricked, working late into the night after they were asleep, all to ensure their college tuition fees were paid, that they could pursue their dreams without the burden of student loans. Dreams I had deferred, dreams I had quietly packed away, always for their sake. The next morning, the house felt different. The oppressive sorrow was still there, a dull ache in my chest, but it was now overlaid with a new, steely determination. The idea began to form, not as a vengeful whim born of anger, though anger was certainly present, but as a logical, almost righteous, reallocation of resources. My life savings, that $1 million earned through my own sweat, my own diligence, my own careful stewardship, should go where it would be valued, where it could make a genuine, lasting difference. My first call was to Mr. Goldstein, my lawyer. He is a kind, elderly man with wise eyes and a gentle demeanor, who had handled John's meager affairs all those decades ago. He also drafted my own simple will years ago, the one that left everything I owned to be divided equally between Tom and Sarah. "Mr. Goldstein," I said, my voice surprisingly firm, devoid of the tremor I had expected, "it is Martha Evans. I need to make an appointment to discuss some significant changes to my will, as soon as possible, if you please." Mr. Goldstein's quiet, book-lined office was a sanctuary of calm. I laid out my plan for him, clearly and concisely. I wanted to use the entirety of my $1 million savings to establish the Martha Evans Educational Foundation. Its sole purpose: to provide substantial scholarships for underprivileged students from our county who aspired to become teachers, the very profession I had dedicated my life to, the profession I believed was the cornerstone of a civilized society. Mr. Goldstein listened patiently, his fingertips steepled, his expression unreadable at first. He asked gentle, probing questions, ensuring I had thought this through thoroughly, that it was not a decision made in a temporary fit of anger or grief. He was clearly surprised by the scale of it, by the totality of my decision, but he saw the unwavering resolve in my eyes. He explained the legal process, the paperwork involved, the time it would take to establish such a foundation properly. A few days later, I met my closest friend, Eleanor Ainsworth, for our regular Tuesday coffee at a little cafe we both liked. Eleanor, also a retired teacher and a widow, has been my confidant for over 30 years. She noticed immediately that something was different about me, a new quiet intensity in my demeanor. I told her everything about the devastating birthday, Tom and Sarah's trip to Hawaii, Sarah's overheard words, and my subsequent decision about the inheritance. Eleanor listened, her expression shifting from shock to disbelief, then to a fierce, protective indignation on my behalf. "Those ungrateful little," she exclaimed, her teacup rattling in its saucer. "After everything you have done for them, Martha, everything, to treat you like that, it is unforgivable." Her support was unwavering, a balm to my bruised spirit. "Martha," she said, her voice firm but gentle, "it is your money, your life's work. You have every right to do with it as you see fit. And frankly, a foundation for young teachers. It is a beautiful, inspired idea, a true legacy. John would be so incredibly proud of you." She even offered to be on the initial informal advisory board for the foundation, if I wished. That conversation, that validation from a trusted friend, solidified my feeling that I was doing something right, something powerful, something that transcended the pettiness of my children's betrayal. The legal process of establishing the foundation began in earnest. Martha, with Mr. Goldstein's expert guidance, started drafting the foundation's charter, meticulously defining its mission, the selection criteria for the scholarships, the governance structure. It was a complex, absorbing undertaking, requiring hours of research and careful thought. This new project gave me a focus, a sense of purpose that began to push the sharpest edges of my pain and disappointment into the background. I felt a flicker of my old teaching energy returning, the familiar excitement of building something meaningful, something that would last. After several weeks of intensive work, countless meetings with Mr. Goldstein, and endless revisions of documents, the day finally arrived. The Martha Evans Educational Foundation was officially and legally established. Mr. Goldstein presented me with the final notarized documents in his office. The folder was thick, filled with heavy vellum paper, each page bearing official seals and signatures. Holding it in my hands, seeing my name and my stated purpose, to foster and support the next generation of dedicated educators, set forth in elegant, immutable script, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment, mixed with a solemn, quiet peace. The $1 million, once a symbol of my maternal devotion, and then, more recently, a symbol of my deep disappointment and their casual disregard, had been transformed. It was no longer their inheritance. It was now a legacy of hope, a beacon for future generations of teachers. It was at that moment, sitting in Mr. Goldstein's office, the official documents resting in my lap, that I made a deliberate, calculated choice. I instructed Mr. Goldstein to send a formal, very brief notification to both Tom and Sarah. The letter was simple, almost stark. "This office represents Martha Evans. Please be advised that your mother has recently undertaken a significant revision of her estate plans. Further details regarding these changes will be shared with you at an appropriate future date should she deem it necessary." No explanations, no apologies, no emotional overtures. Just a cold, factual statement designed to create uncertainty, perhaps even a little unease. I wanted them to wonder, I wanted them to reflect, if they were capable of it, before the final, inevitable reveal. Tom and Sarah, presumably back from their sun-drenched Hawaiian vacation, and no doubt sporting impressive tans, received Mr. Goldstein's letters a few days later. The reaction, as I had anticipated, was swift. Tom called me first, his voice laced with an unfamiliar mixture of confusion and poorly concealed anxiety. "Mom, we got this really strange letter from Mr. Goldstein about your will. What is going on? Are you okay? Nothing has happened, has it?" Sarah called minutes later, her voice echoing his feigned concern, though hers sounded more overtly like curiosity about the potential financial implications. "Mom, that lawyer's letter was so cryptic. Is everything all right? Did you sell the house or something? You know you can talk to us if you are having financial difficulties." The irony of that last statement was almost laughable. I remained calm throughout both calls, polite, but entirely evasive. "Oh, the letter?" I said, my tone deliberately nonchalant. "Just some routine updates, dear. Tidying up some loose ends. Nothing for you to worry yourselves about now. We can discuss it another time when you are not so busy. Now, tell me, how was Hawaii? Did you get much sun? I hope you used sunscreen." My deliberate lack of explanation, my gentle deflection of their increasingly pointed questions, clearly unnerved them. They tried to press for details, but I steered the conversation away each time, asking about their jobs, their children, anything but my will. Their calls became a little more frequent after that, their tone a little more insistent, though always couched in terms of concern for my well-being. I knew with a certainty that settled like lead in my stomach that they were worried about their money. I, meanwhile, threw myself into the practicalities of launching the foundation. I met regularly with Eleanor and a retired school principal, Martin Holloway, who had also agreed to serve on the initial board. We started drafting the scholarship application forms, outlining the essay requirements, and reaching out to local high schools and community colleges to announce the foundation's existence and its mission. The work was invigorating, deeply meaningful. It felt like I was planting seeds that would grow into something beautiful and lasting. I also mentally prepared myself for the inevitable face-to-face confrontation. I knew they would eventually demand a meeting, driven not by genuine remorse for my abandoned birthday, but by the unsettling news from my lawyer. Our first informal foundation board meeting took place in my living room around my old mahogany coffee table. We spread out drafts of application guidelines, discussed fundraising ideas for the future, though the initial endowment was substantial, and debated the precise qualities we were looking for in our scholarship recipients. It was not just about academic excellence, we all agreed. We wanted to help students who demonstrated genuine financial need, a true passion for teaching, and perhaps most importantly, those who had overcome significant adversity in their young lives. Eleanor mentioned a former student of hers, a bright young woman who was now a guidance counselor at a struggling inner-city high school. "Maria often tells me about so many brilliant kids there, Martha," Eleanor said, her eyes shining. "Kids with so much potential, but who simply give up on the dream of college, especially a 4-year teaching degree, because their families cannot afford it. This foundation, Martha, it could be a lifeline for them, a genuine game changer." A surge of excitement, of pure, unadulterated purpose, coursed through me. This was real. This was tangible. I could almost envision the faces of the students whose lives my foundation would touch, whose dreams it would help to nurture. "That is exactly who I want to help, Eleanor," I said, a new light, a new energy in my voice. "The ones who have the fire, the passion, but lack the means. The ones who might otherwise be overlooked by more traditional scholarship programs." And the thought of these future teachers, these sparks of hope for a better future, strengthened my resolve against any future appeals or manipulations from Tom and Sarah. My children may have chosen a path of self-interest and casual disregard, but my legacy, my life savings, would now nurture the dreams of others, those who truly understood the value of opportunity. A few weeks later, as I had expected, Tom called again. His tone was different this time, firmer, no longer asking, but telling. "Mom, Sarah and I have been talking. We really think we need to come over and see you, talk properly about this estate stuff, and just see how you are doing. We have cleared our schedules. We can come next Saturday afternoon, if that works for you." I agreed, my voice calm. "Saturday afternoon will be fine, Tom." The night before their scheduled visit was a difficult one. A wave of profound doubt and a deep, aching loneliness washed over me. I sat in my armchair in the darkened living room, clutching a faded photograph of Tom and Sarah as young children, their faces beaming up at me, full of innocent love. Was I being too harsh, too unforgiving? Was this act, however justified I felt it to be, going to irrevocably destroy any chance of reconciliation, however slim it might already be? The pain of their birthday abandonment, the sting of Sarah's carelessly cruel words, a drag, a burden, resurfaced with a vengeance, twisting like a knife in my gut. What if I died completely estranged from them? Was this legacy, noble as it was, worth that ultimate, heartbreaking price? I felt the immense weight of my decision, the profound solitude of my stance. Then, as if seeking an anchor in the storm of my emotions, I got up and walked to my small mahogany desk, where a folder neatly labeled Martha Evans Educational Foundation sat. I opened it and pulled out the draft of the first scholarship application form we had created. I reread the mission statement, the words I had so carefully crafted with Eleanor and Martin, to empower and uplift aspiring educators from disadvantaged backgrounds, fostering a legacy of excellence and compassion in teaching. I thought of Eleanor's words about Maria and the students at the inner city school. I thought of the hypothetical, bright, eager young faces, yearning for a chance, for someone to believe in them. My resolve returned, not as a burning, vengeful anger this time, but as a deep, quiet, unshakable conviction. This was not about revenge, I told myself firmly. Revenge is a bitter, empty thing that ultimately consumes the avenger. This was about transformation. It was about creating positive, lasting value from my pain, from my disappointment. It was about ensuring that my life savings made a genuine, tangible difference in the lives of young people who would appreciate the opportunity, who would carry forward the torch of education that I had held dear for so many years. I would not be swayed by belated, self-serving apologies or expressions of regret clearly motivated by greed. I was doing the right thing for myself, for my beloved profession, and for countless future students whose names I did not yet know, but whose futures I was now helping to shape. My sacrifice, originally intended for my children, would now benefit those who were truly deserving, those who understood the precious gift of opportunity. They would arrive tomorrow armed with their carefully rehearsed apologies and their unspoken, deeply ingrained expectations. They were expecting an explanation, perhaps even a concession from their old-fashioned mother, whom they had so easily dismissed. They were about to receive the biggest surprise of their lives, and it would not be wrapped in pretty paper with a festive bow. Saturday morning arrived, cool and clear. I felt a surprising sense of calm, almost serenity. I baked a simple batch of oatmeal cookies, a deliberate, faintly ironic nod to the boring dinners they so casually despised. I set out a pot of freshly brewed tea, using my everyday teapot, not the best china. On my coffee table, in plain sight, I placed the neatly bound official documents for the Martha Evans Educational Foundation. I dressed in a simple, comfortable navy blue dress and wore my favorite string of pearls, a gift from John many years ago. I felt centered, prepared, and strangely peaceful. Tom and Sarah arrived precisely at 2 o'clock. They were dressed smartly, their expressions a carefully constructed blend of concern and forced cheerfulness. They presented me with a generic bouquet of supermarket carnations already slightly wilted at the edges. A far cry from the extravagant floral arrangements Brenda likely received. After some awkward small talk about the weather, their busy work schedules, and the health of their own children, my grandchildren, whom I saw far too infrequently, Tom finally broached the subject. Unable to contain his impatience any longer, he leaned forward, trying to sound casual, but his eyes betrayed his anxiety. "So, Mom," he began, "about that letter from Mr. Goldstein, and your estate, and all that. What is this all really about? You had us a bit worried, you know. We were just concerned. Did you decide to sell the house or something?" Sarah chimed in quickly, her voice a little too bright. "Yes, Mom. We just want to make sure you are okay and that you are not making any rash decisions. You know you can always talk to us if you need anything." I took a slow, deliberate sip of my tea, then met their expectant gazes. "No, the house is perfectly fine, and I am quite well, thank you both for asking." I paused, letting the silence stretch just a moment too long, enjoying, perhaps a little guiltily, the nervous shifting in their seats. What has changed, quite significantly, is my will. Specifically, what happens to my savings after I'm gone. The $1 million I had always intended to leave equally to you both. I saw them both lean forward almost imperceptibly, their eyes fixed on me, a flicker of anticipation, perhaps even relief in their expressions. They likely assumed I had merely restructured it, perhaps put it into some sort of complicated trust for their benefit or for the grandchildren. "I have decided," I said, my voice clear, steady, and entirely devoid of any tremor or emotion, "to use that entire sum, every last penny of it, to establish and endow the Martha Evans Educational Foundation." I gestured with a calm hand towards the impressive, official-looking documents on the coffee table. "Its purpose, as you will see if you care to read the charter, will be to provide substantial scholarships for underprivileged and deserving students from our county who wish to pursue a career in teaching, the profession I dedicated my life to, and which I firmly believe forms the bedrock of any civilized society. It is all legally finalized, notarized, and I should add, entirely irrevocable." Tom and Sarah stared at the documents as if they were venomous snakes, then back at me, their faces slowly draining of all color. For a long, stunned moment, there was absolute silence in the room, broken only by the insistent, rhythmic ticking of the old mantel clock, a sound that suddenly seemed unnervingly loud. Tom was the first to find his voice, sputtering, his face a mask of disbelief. $1 million? Mom, are you serious? You are giving all of it away? Our inheritance? To strangers?" Sarah found her voice next, her tone high-pitched, laced with a dawning, incredulous anger. But that was for us! You always said that money was for us! How could you do this to us, after all these years?" "I did say that, yes," I interjected calmly, my gaze unwavering as I met theirs. "But circumstances change, children. People change. And sometimes people are shown in no uncertain terms the true value others place upon them. On my 70th birthday, when I sat in this very house completely alone, with a cake I had bought for a family celebration that never happened, listening to a voicemail message telling me that my presence, my company was considered a drag, a boring obligation. Well, I had a great deal of time for reflection. I thought long and hard about what it means to be valued, to be respected, to be loved. Not as a duty, mind you, but genuinely from the heart. Their faces flushed a deep, mottled crimson, a mixture of shame and rising fury. This money, I continued, my voice gaining a quiet, unshakable strength, is the product of my lifetime of hard work, my sacrifices, my careful stewardship when your father was no longer here to provide. It is mine, and I have the absolute right to decide where it goes, to whom it is entrusted. I have decided it will go to young people who understand the value of effort, of dedication, of kindness. Students who will cherish the opportunity it provides, not see it as an entitlement to be squandered or taken for granted, while they jet off to luxurious Hawaiian vacations, casually dismissing the person who made it all possible for them in the first place. Tom and Sarah were aghast, speechless for another moment. Then they erupted in a torrent of excuses, belated apologies, and thinly veiled accusations. "Mom, we are so sorry about Hawaii, about your birthday. It was a terrible mistake, a misunderstanding," Tom stammered, his face pale. "Brenda she can be very persuasive, you know, and Dad wanted us to go so badly. We felt pressured." "We did not mean what you heard, Mom. We swear," Sarah pleaded, tears, whether of genuine remorse or lost fortune. I could not quite tell, welling in her eyes. "We were just stressed out, tired from the flight. It was a stupid, thoughtless thing to say. We love you. Of course we love you." I listened, my expression calm, unmoved by their sudden, desperate contrition. "Your apologies are noted," I said quietly, when they finally paused for breath. "Perhaps they are even sincere in this particular moment. But they do not change my decision. This foundation is my legacy now. It is where my heart is. And frankly, it is already bringing me more joy and profound purpose than I can adequately express." They tried pleading then, switching tactics. They hinted at their own financial pressures, the mortgages on their large homes, their children's future college expenses, conveniently forgetting I had paid for theirs. They talked about the unfairness of it all, how they had always counted on that inheritance, how it was their right. I remained resolute. "The decision is final and irrevocable," I stated, my voice leaving no room for argument. "The documents are signed. The foundation is established. The money is no longer yours to expect or to plan for." Defeated, angry, and perhaps for the first time truly comprehending the depth of the wound they had inflicted and the magnitude of what they had lost. Not just a significant sum of money, but their mother's deep-seated trust and affection, Tom and Sarah eventually left. The expensive, slightly wilted supermarket carnations remained on the coffee table, a pathetic, wilting symbol of their too little, too late gesture. In the weeks and months that followed, Tom and Sarah made a few more awkward, half-hearted attempts at reconciliation. They sent bland, generic cards for holidays. They made brief, uncomfortable phone calls, their conversations stilted and superficial. But their regret, if it was indeed regret, seemed shallow, rooted more in the lost fortune than in any genuine understanding or remorse for their sustained neglect and profound disrespect. I maintained a polite but firm distance. I told them, during one particularly strained call from Tom, that if they ever wished to rebuild a genuine relationship with me, one based on mutual respect and sincere affection, it would require consistent, demonstrable effort over a very long period, and, I added, it would not, under any circumstances, alter my decision regarding the foundation. I, meanwhile, thrived. I immersed myself in the work of the Martha Evans Educational Foundation. I chaired the board meetings with Eleanor and Martin, helped review the surprisingly numerous applications we received, and took immense, heartfelt joy in personally calling the first scholarship recipients to share the good news. I attended a small, deeply moving awards ceremony at the local community college, where I had the honor of meeting Maria Sanchez, a bright, articulate, and incredibly determined young woman from a struggling immigrant family. She tearfully thanked me for believing in her, for giving her a chance to become a teacher when all other doors had seemed firmly closed to her due to lack of funds. This, I realized with a clarity that filled my heart. This was my new family. This was my true living legacy. I reconnected with old friends like Eleanor, enjoyed leisurely lunches, joined a book club, and even took a small, unhurried trip to the coast of Maine, a place John and I had always dreamed of visiting, but never had the funds for when we were young and saving for our children's future. The community, through a modest article in the local newspaper about the foundation, learned of my extraordinary generosity. I was no longer just Martha Evans, the quiet retired teacher. I was Martha Evans, philanthropist, benefactor, a woman of substance and purpose. Occasionally, I take the still frozen birthday cake out of the freezer. I look at its cheerful, now slightly faded pink frosting, and then I put it back. Not with sadness anymore, not with bitterness, but as a reminder of the catalyst, the painful turning point that led me to this new, fulfilling, and deeply meaningful chapter of my life. The silence of my house is now often filled with the cheerful ring of the telephone, calls from board members, updates from Mr. Goldstein, thank you notes read aloud from grateful students. And often, it is filled with the warm sound of laughter shared with dear friends. The burden has become a celebrated benefactor. I have learned that sometimes the deepest betrayals, the most painful rejections, can inadvertently open the door to the most profound acts of self-reclamation and purpose. My children's callousness, while devastating at the time, ultimately freed me to create a legacy far more meaningful and impactful than simply passing on an unappreciated inheritance. I discovered that my true worth was not defined by their love or attention, or lack thereof, but by my own actions, my own values, and the positive impact I could make on the world. They may have forgotten my 70th birthday, I often think now with a serene, private smile, but generations of students, future teachers, who will go on to inspire countless other young minds, will remember my name. They will benefit from my life's work. And that, I have come to understand with every fiber of my being, is an inheritance worth far more than $1 million. Thank you for listening to Martha's powerful story of resilience and transformation. It's a testament to the fact that our worth isn't dictated by how others treat us, but by the choices we make and the legacy we decide to build from our experiences. If Martha's journey touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. Give this video a thumbs up and share your thoughts and reflections in the comments below. We cherish our community and the wisdom you bring. Be sure to explore our other stories of strength, justice, and rebirth. We look forward to welcoming you back again soon.